There's a specific moment in your evolution that almost no one recognizes, not because it's rare, but because it's quiet. A moment where nothing big seems to happen on the outside, yet something undeniable rearranges itself inside you. No fireworks, no sudden breakthroughs, no dramatic waves of emotion, just an unexpected softness, a strange calm, a pause in the inner noise you've been carrying for years. And although your mind overlooks it, the quantum field never does. Because this quiet moment is the earliest sign that your reality is already shifting. People imagine quantum manifestation as a loud event, a sudden surge of clarity, a rush of inspiration. But real quantum change doesn't arrive through intensity, it arrives through silence. And once you understand why the shift feels quiet, you'll never mistake stillness for stagnation again.
There's a specific moment in your evolution that almost no one recognizes, not because it's rare, but because it's quiet. A moment where nothing big seems to happen on the outside, yet something undeniable rearranges itself inside you. No fireworks, no sudden breakthroughs, no dramatic waves of emotion, just an unexpected softness, a strange calm, a pause in the inner noise you've been carrying for years. And although your mind overlooks it, the quantum field never does. Because this quiet moment is the earliest sign that your reality is already shifting. People imagine quantum manifestation as a loud event, a sudden surge of clarity, a rush of inspiration, a feeling of power. But real quantum change doesn't arrive through intensity. It arrives through silence. It moves in the background while you're busy looking for signs. It organizes timelines while your conscious mind is still trying to figure things out. The quantum doesn't crash into your life. It glides in quietly, changing the architecture of your identity before your thoughts have a chance to catch up. This is the paradox. The more profound the shift, the quieter it feels at first. Because manifestation doesn't begin when the external world changes. It begins when your inner world stops resisting, when the emotional static that once filled your system fades into the background, when the nervous tension you've been rehearsing for years dissolves, not through effort, but because your energy is finally aligning with a new configuration. Quantum physics mirrors this beautifully. The collapse of a waveform into a defined state happens in silence. No explosion, no dramatic spark. The transition from infinite possibility to a single reality is subtle, almost ghost-like. The universe doesn't make noise when probability reorganizes itself, and neither do you. Your frequency shifts quietly, gently, precisely. The body senses the shift long before the mind interprets it. Neuroscience confirms this too. When your identity begins updating, the first measurable change is a reduction in neural noise, a decrease in repetitive thought loops, emotional reactivity, and internal hypervigilance. Your brain becomes less chaotic, less frenzied, less cluttered. You don't feel euphoria. You feel clarity. You don't feel excitement. You feel space. And because the mind is addicted to stimulation, it often misinterprets that space as nothing is happening, when in truth, it's the first sign that everything is happening. This quiet is not emptiness. It's alignment. It is the point where your energy stops fighting your desires and starts matching them. When you stop oscillating between wanting and fearing, when you stop rehearsing the past and loosening your grip on future outcomes, the stillness you feel is the absence of distortion, the absence of emotional interference, the absence of internal contradiction. And without those distortions, your signal becomes coherent, and coherent signals manifest faster. Think about the times in your life when something extraordinary unfolded with ease. The opportunity that came out of nowhere. The person who appeared with perfect timing. The solution that arrived without you chasing it. If you look closely, you'll realize that these moments weren't born from intensity. They were born from quiet. You weren't obsessing. You weren't overthinking. You weren't gripping the outcome. You were simply present enough for reality to shift. The silence is not a void. It is the clearing where your new timeline enters. But most people miss this because they expect spiritual growth and manifestation to feel dramatic. They think the universe speaks in thunder, but the universe speaks in resonance, and resonance is subtle. It feels like ease. It feels like relief. It feels like a softening in your chest that you might ignore because it doesn't feel strong enough to matter. Yet that softness is the beginning of coherence, and coherence is what the quantum field responds to instantly. The reason the shift feels quiet is because noise comes from the old identity, not the new one. Noise is the emotional chaos of the self that's trying to control everything. Noise is the survival programming that believes pressure creates results. Noise is the mind replaying stories the body has already outgrown. When you enter the silent shift, you're stepping out of that version of yourself. You're stepping into an identity that doesn't need to shout to feel real. Silence is not the absence of movement. It is the signature of alignment. When your inner world becomes quiet, the field around you becomes active. When your nervous system calms, the universe accelerates. When your energy stabilizes, your timeline opens. The quietness you're feeling is not stagnation. It's synchronization. You're not waiting for the shift. You're already in it. In the comments, drop one word that describes the quiet shift you're experiencing right now. Maybe it's calm, maybe it's spacious, maybe it's settling, maybe it's something uniquely yours. Let that word be a small but profound declaration, a signal you send not just in this space, but into the quantum field itself. Long before a manifestation reaches the physical world, your body feels the shift. Not your thoughts, not your beliefs, not your affirmations, your body. The subtle layers of your physiology begin adjusting to the new timeline, even while your conscious mind is still trying to make sense of why you suddenly feel different. And because these shifts are delicate and quiet, most people overlook them completely. They assume nothing is happening because it doesn't feel dramatic. But quantum manifestation is a biological event long before it becomes a visible one. Your body is the first part of you to recognize that a new reality is forming, not because it knows the details of the future, but because it senses coherence before the mind can interpret it. The chest softens. The breath becomes smoother. Your awareness widens by a fraction. The inner resistance you didn't even know you were carrying begins to loosen. None of this feels spectacular. It feels like calm. But calm is transformation in its rawest form. Before your life changes, your nervous system changes. Before the timeline shifts, your emotional field stabilizes. Before the universe rearranges itself, your internal frequency stops contradicting itself. These early sensations are subtle because they're pure, free from the noise of expectation, desire, fear, or mental projection. They're the clearest indicators that the field has already responded to you. Quantum change begins with micro-adjustments, not revelations. Neuroscience shows that the earliest signals of identity transformation are microscopic. A reduction in hypervigilance, a drop in internal tension, a brief pause in thought loops. These microsignals mean your brain is no longer predicting your future based on the emotional patterns of your past. It's beginning to sense a new baseline, one that doesn't require constant monitoring, controlling, or preparing. When the mind quiets even slightly, your electromagnetic field becomes more coherent. And coherence is the language of the quantum. The universe doesn't respond to effort. It responds to consistency. These subtle shifts are your first moments of internal consistency. Not because you forced a new state, but because you finally stopped interfering with the one that was trying to emerge. Most people miss this stage because they are addicted to intensity. They expect change to announce itself with clarity, excitement, or inspiration. But the quantum doesn't work through noise. Noise is emotional residue. Noise is survival memory. Noise is resistance disguised as urgency. The universe speaks in the spaces beneath the noise. The quiet sensations the mind dismisses because they don't feel big enough. But subtle does not mean weak. Subtle means precise. When your energy shifts, it shifts cleanly. No fanfare, no emotional spikes, just a gentle reorientation toward coherence so exact that your mind doesn't know how to interpret it. This is why the shift feels subtle. Your system is adjusting to a timeline that is more aligned than anything you've held before. And alignment doesn't create adrenaline, it creates peace. You might notice small, almost invisible signs. A breath that feels easier than usual. A thought that loses its emotional charge. A desire that no longer feels heavy. A situation that no longer triggers your old reflexes. A sense that something is done even though nothing has changed yet. These are not coincidences. They are micro-indicators that your identity is already updating. The subtle shift always happens before the external shift, because the body must stabilize the frequency before the universe can match it. And here's what makes this stage so powerful. Subtle shifts compound. One small release in your chest today becomes a deeper breath tomorrow. One moment of neutrality today becomes a new emotional baseline tomorrow. The universe doesn't need your certainty. It only needs your openness. And openness begins with the smallest adjustments. If you've been feeling more calm than usual, more neutral, more relaxed, more observant, don't overlook it. Don't tell yourself nothing is happening. That calmness is the field aligning itself with the version of you who is ready. It's the earliest sign that what you've been calling in has already entered your energetic space. And if some part of you recognizes this, if you can feel even a slight quietness settling inside you right now, then mark this moment in a way your nervous system can anchor. Type in the comments, "I trust the quiet shift," not as a ritual, not as a technique, but as an acknowledgement of the truth. The universe does its most powerful work in silence. If this resonates with you, hit subscribe and click the bell icon next to it. Also join our Manifestation Club on gogetter.au. This isn't just a channel, this is a frequency. If you felt something shift while watching, you're already tuned in. We're not just consuming content here, we're honoring the silent language of quantum transformation. Let's keep evolving together. There is a reason the universe feels silent when it begins responding to you. Not because nothing is happening, but because everything is finally happening without resistance. The quantum field doesn't announce its movements with drama or intensity. It doesn't shout. It doesn't overwhelm your senses. It doesn't shake your emotions to get your attention. It does the opposite. It creates coherence, so subtle, so stable that your system relaxes into it before you even realize a transition is taking place. The universe speaks in quiet because quiet is the only state where you can actually receive. Noise, emotional, mental, physical is interference, and interference is the enemy of manifestation. Interference distorts your signal, scrambles your identity, destabilizes your field. Interference pulls you into old emotional predictions, old reflexes, old versions of yourself. When you're immersed in noise, your energy flickers. It becomes inconsistent, divided, tangled. The quantum cannot collapse into form around a tangled signal. This is why the shift feels subtle. Subtlety is coherence. Coherence is clarity. Clarity is what collapses probabilities into reality. Physics describes this beautifully. A wave becomes a particle only when interference is reduced. For a waveform to collapse, it must stabilize. Too much fluctuation, too much noise, too much turbulence, and the collapse takes longer. But when the wave becomes quiet, it becomes definable. It becomes form. It becomes actual. The same thing happens inside you. When your internal world quiets, your timeline stabilizes and collapses into physical experience with far more speed. Most people think the universe responds to emotion, but it actually responds to coherence. The universe is not listening for how passionate you are. It's listening for how aligned you are. Passion can be chaotic. Desire can be chaotic. Even excitement can be chaotic. But coherence? Coherence is stillness, wrapped in precision. Coherence is silence, arranged into order. Coherence is the frequency that says this identity is ready. This is why major manifestations often arrive during periods of calm, where nothing seems to be happening. You feel neutral. You feel spacious. You feel steady. You're not in a rush. You're not pushing. You're not obsessing. You're not scanning for signs. It feels almost too quiet to matter. But it's the quiet that signals the field. Interference is gone. And when interference is gone, the universe accelerates. Neuroscience mirrors this phenomenon. When your emotional patterns destabilize, your brain produces more noise, random firing, hypervigilance, looping thoughts. Decision-making becomes inconsistent. The nervous system becomes flooded with micro-cues of fear. Even if you think positively, your biology is sending mixed messages. But when your inner world reaches coherence, the brain enters a pattern known as low excitation stability. Fewer unnecessary signals, more efficient processing, smoother rhythms. You don't feel high vibe. You feel grounded. You don't feel euphoric. You feel available. You don't feel stimulated. You feel steady. And this steadiness is what makes your desires magnetic. Silence is not absence. Silence is alignment. The universe isn't waiting for you to feel more intensity. It's waiting for you to stop sending contradictory signals. When your internal world becomes quiet, your field becomes readable. When your field becomes readable, your intention becomes recognizable. When your intention becomes recognizable, your timeline becomes accessible. Your manifestations aren't subtle because they're weak. They're subtle because they're precise. And precision doesn't announce itself with noise. It reveals itself through ease. This is why you sometimes feel a calm you can't explain. That strange quiet that makes you wonder if you're disconnected or confused. But that quiet is actually the first sign that your manifestation has entered its activation phase. You've stopped gripping. You've stopped projecting. You've stopped interrupting your own signal. Your system has entered the exact frequency the universe needs in order to respond coherently. There's also a deeper layer to this. The universe protects your manifestations through subtlety. Loud shifts activate the analytical mind. Loud shifts trigger survival reflexes. Loud shifts provoke doubt. But the quiet field is the universe saying, I'm aligning around you now. Stay open. Once you understand this, you stop chasing sensations and start recognizing signals. You stop relying on emotional intensity as proof of progress. You stop mistaking calmness for stagnation. You begin to trust the emptiness between your thoughts as the birthplace of new timelines. You begin to sense the difference between a quiet mind and a dormant one. You begin to understand the future enters through silence. If your life feels quieter lately, internally, emotionally, energetically, don't overlook it. This isn't the pause before progress. This is the progress. Your energy is stabilizing. Your identity is reorganizing. Your signal is becoming coherent. The universe is finally close enough to whisper, and the whisper is always the beginning of acceleration. In the comments, share one thing that feels quieter in your life right now. Maybe it's your mind. Maybe it's your desires. Maybe it's your resistance. Maybe it's something uniquely yours. Your quiet matters. Your stillness matters. Because you matter. There comes a point in your evolution where you stop waiting for signs and start noticing something far more powerful. You've become the sign. Not because you feel invincible. Not because you're filled with unstoppable momentum. But because your energy has settled into a stability that no longer depends on external confirmation. You're not looking for proof. You're not checking for alignment. You're not trying to predict what the universe is doing. You're simply living from a frequency that no longer contradicts your desires. This is the whisper-level identity, the version of you who doesn't need noise to feel secure in their timeline. The version who trusts subtlety because they understand that subtlety is where the universe does its finest work. The version whose field is coherent enough that the absence of chaos feels more real than the presence of certainty. This identity isn't louder than your old self. It's quieter, but its quiet is magnetic. You step into this identity the moment you stop depending on intensity to feel connected to your path. Because intensity belongs to the old you. The you who believed manifestation was something you chase or earn or fight for. Whisper-level identity emerges when you finally understand that manifesting isn't an accomplishment, it's a resonance. And resonance doesn't roar, it hums. At this level, your body becomes your indicator. Not your thoughts, not your emotions, your body. You feel a steadiness in your chest that used to be filled with pressure. You feel a grounded calm in your abdomen where fear once lived. You feel a quiet sense of inevitability where doubt once echoed. These sensations don't scream something big is happening. They whisper, you're no longer in your own way. And that whisper is enough to move worlds. The universe responds immediately when you reach this level because you're finally broadcasting from identity rather than longing. Manifestation becomes a natural outcome of your state, not a pursuit fueled by craving. You're not sending signals of urgency. You're not leaking energy through overthinking. You're not gripping the timeline with fear disguised as determination. Your frequency becomes clean, stable, readable. And because it's readable, the field aligns around you without resistance. This identity doesn't try to feel high vibration. It simply stops rehearsing the emotional patterns that lowered your vibration in the first place. It doesn't try to believe harder. It stops contradicting the belief that already exists beneath your doubt. It doesn't try to visualize more vividly. It becomes the person who no longer depends on images because the inner state is already aligned. The whisper-level identity is the truest version of you, the one that was buried beneath noise, fear, urgency, and self-surveillance. When these layers fall away, you're left with the version of yourself the universe has always been trying to respond to, not the conditioned self, not the striving self, not the fearful self, the coherent self. And here's the subtle magic. Once you become this version, manifestation stops feeling like a result and starts feeling like a rhythm. Life becomes responsive. Timelines adjust without force. Opportunities fit without friction. You act from clarity, not confusion. You move from intuition, not impulse. The shift is so seamless that you almost miss it, but your entire reality reorganizes around your calm. Quiet is not the absence of movement. Quiet is the upgrade of your identity. When you no longer require external proof, reality stops operating on delay. Proof appears faster because your energy isn't blocking the delivery. You trust the timing because your system is no longer bracing for disappointment. You believe the process because belief has become your emotional baseline rather than an effort you make in moments of anxiety. This is why manifestation feels subtle, because the self that's receiving it is no longer unstable. When your identity is coherent, the universe doesn't need to shake you to get your attention. It simply meets you. And if, as you hear this, you can sense even a slight resonance, a quiet recognition that your energy is softening into something more aligned, trust that feeling. That whisper is not small. That whisper is the universe confirming that you're stepping into the identity that makes receiving effortless. If you're ready to deepen this identity, to stabilize it, embody it, and make it your new baseline, you don't have to guess what comes next. The path is already here for you. The Awaken Your Quantum Power ebook and its practical companion were created for exactly this stage of your evolution. They help you anchor the silent shift, expand coherence, dissolve interference, and elevate your identity to the level where quantum manifestation becomes natural, fluid, and unmistakably fast. You'll find the link waiting for you in the pinned comment. If your energy feels open, follow the whisper. That's how the next timeline begins. Make sure you share this video with your loved ones. You might just be the blessing in disguise they need today. Remember, you're not just sharing. You're spreading the language of silence and quantum truth, and that energy will awaken everyone who's ready to stop chasing noise and start trusting the whisper that changes everything.